You can't wear that in first class, sir. The word sliced through the low hum of the cabin like a sudden crack of thunder. Sharp. Dismissive. Delivered with a hint of smug authority. Keanu Reeves blinked, startled, not by the volume, but by the absurdity. He turned slowly toward the flight attendant standing over him, her posture rigid, her perfectly ironed uniform speaking volumes about the pride she took in her position. Her expression was a mixture of disdain and false politeness. The kind reserved not for troublemakers, but for those who didn't look like they belonged. Clutched loosely in Keanu's hand was a simple necklace, a modest silver cross with a tiny green stone embedded in the center. It wasn't gaudy or oversized. It didn't scream designer brand. It wasn't worn to impress anyone. It was something else entirely. He had been holding it before takeoff, quietly, like a ritual. His eyes had been closed. Some passengers assumed he was meditating. Others didn't notice. But she did. And now, apparently, it was a problem. "Excuse me?" Keanu asked gently, raising an eyebrow. "That necklace," the attendant said, lowering her voice just enough to make the moment feel private, while still allowing nearby passengers to overhear. "It could be considered offensive. It's not appropriate for first class." Keanu didn't reply immediately. He studied her face, searching for a sign that maybe she was joking. But her eyes were stern. Serious. Judging. Around him, the luxury cabin had quieted. Heads were subtly turning. Some passengers were already whispering. Was that Keanu Reeves? Why was a flight attendant confronting him? But Keanu stayed calm. That was his way. He didn't bark back. He didn't challenge her. He simply looked down at the necklace in his hand, the one he had worn for nearly 2 decades. It wasn't just a fashion statement. It was a memory. A promise. A tribute. That cross was hand-forged by a street artist in Berlin during the filming of The Matrix Reloaded. Keanu had bought it on impulse, but after the sudden death of his best friend, River Phoenix, the necklace became something more. It became a symbol of loss, love, and survival. He wore it during difficult shoots. He held it before every flight. And today was no different. "I've worn this for years," he said quietly, finally tucking it beneath his shirt, not out of submission, but out of grace. "I'd appreciate if you didn't bring attention to it," he added, his voice almost a whisper. But the damage was already done. The people seated around him began to murmur. A woman across the aisle furrowed her brow. A teenage boy in the next row started typing furiously into his phone. Cameras weren't yet rolling, but the tension was being recorded, in glances, in silence, in the growing awareness that something felt off. Keanu leaned back in his seat, closed his eyes, and sighed softly. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed. Because once again, someone had judged him not for who he was, but for what they assumed. And what no one on that plane realized, yet, was that this moment wasn't the end of something small. It was the beginning of something very, very big. Let me know if you'd like to expand the next section similarly, or if you want a matching voiceover version for this part of your video. The necklace wasn't just jewelry. It was a tribute. A quiet echo of a bond that had once defined Keanu's youth, a bond shattered by tragedy. River Phoenix wasn't just a friend. He was a brother in spirit. A fellow artist. A kindred soul who understood the darkness and the light inside Keanu long before the world ever did. And when River passed, that necklace, handcrafted by a street artist in Berlin, became Keanu's anchor. A reminder to stay grounded, to stay human, no matter how loud the fame got. But to the flight attendant, it was nothing more than a piece of metal. A disruption to the first-class image. "That's not appropriate for first class," she had said, with a scoff. Her words hung in the air like smoke, bitter and unwanted. She didn't see the meaning. She didn't see the man. Passengers began shifting in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. A few whispered. One man, about 2 rows back, leaned forward and murmured to his wife, "Isn't that Keanu Reeves?" She nodded, eyes wide. "It is." But the attendant didn't flinch. She rolled her eyes in plain view, brushing off the whispers. To her, this wasn't a celebrity. This was a dress code violation. A man who didn't fit the look, despite his ticket, despite his fame, despite his dignity. Keanu said nothing. His eyes were calm, his hands steady. He simply nodded and tucked the necklace beneath his shirt. Quietly. Respectfully. He wasn't going to make a scene. But someone else was. From the far end of the cabin, a young woman stood up. Early 20s. Nervous, but fierce. She had been watching, eyes narrowed, jaw tight. She pulled out her phone and began recording, but she didn't hide it. She wanted the moment captured. "Excuse me," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Are you seriously harassing Keanu Reeves over a necklace?" The flight attendant turned, flustered. "Ma'am, please sit down." "No, I won't. He's not bothering anyone. That necklace means something to him. You don't get to judge that." Murmurs spread like wildfire. Other phones came out. More passengers nodded in agreement. One older man near the front said, "She's right. Leave him alone." The attendant's face paled slightly. She glanced toward the cockpit, clearly unsure of how to proceed. And Keanu? He still didn't say a word. Because in that moment, he didn't have to. Strangers were standing for him, not because he was a celebrity, but because they saw something unjust. Something wrong. Something petty, being wielded against someone who had done absolutely nothing wrong. This wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. It was about respect. And respect, as the crew was about to learn, doesn't come with a uniform. It comes with humility. And truth was, the story was just getting started. The moment that young woman stood up, everything changed. Her voice had cracked the fragile air of control the flight attendant thought she had. What started as a whisper of discontent had turned into a ripple, spreading down the aisle, seat by seat, until it was more than murmurs. It was unity. Quiet, but strong. The flight attendant stood frozen, her smile forced now, her posture stiff. Her training hadn't prepared her for this. She wasn't dealing with an unruly passenger or a technical issue. She was facing something far more difficult to manage, public opinion turning against her. And worse, on camera. The girl who spoke up, Claire, kept her phone steady. "I just want it noted," she said firmly, "that this man is being humiliated over a necklace. Something that's deeply personal to him. This is discrimination, and frankly, it's embarrassing." Several other passengers nodded or added soft agreement. Claire's voice was gaining strength. Her courage inspired others. "I've seen that necklace in interviews," said a man seated near the middle. "He wears it in honor of someone he lost. It's not some random chain. It's part of who he is." The flight attendant's lips tightened. She adjusted her jacket, trying to keep composure. "Sir," she said again, addressing Keanu directly, "I'd be happy to move you to a different seat if you feel uncomfortable." But the tone had shifted. Now she was the one being watched. Judged. Recorded. Keanu finally opened his eyes. He looked up, not with anger, not with defiance, but with a strange sort of peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you did nothing wrong. "That won't be necessary," he said gently. And with that, he leaned back in his seat again, calm as the ocean before a storm. That's when a flight supervisor appeared, likely summoned from the cockpit after hearing about the disturbance. He approached with caution, speaking quietly to the attendant. The two exchanged hushed words. Her hands moved nervously. The supervisor's brows furrowed. After a moment, the supervisor approached Keanu and bowed slightly. "I apologize, Mr. Reeves. There's no issue with your necklace. Please, feel free to wear it as you wish." A few passengers clapped quietly. The tension eased, just a little. Claire sat down, relieved. But the damage was already done. The flight attendant was instructed to take a break and step away from the first-class cabin. She did so stiffly, her expression unreadable. Maybe it was embarrassment. Maybe anger. Maybe regret. Keanu said nothing more. He didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He simply pulled the necklace from beneath his shirt and let it rest on his chest, exactly where it belonged. For the rest of the flight, the cabin remained quiet. Respectful. Reflective. Because what everyone had just witnessed wasn't a celebrity meltdown, or a scene for entertainment. It was a reminder that dignity can't be measured by outfits, class, or tickets. It lives in the heart. And sometimes, around the neck. The flight landed without another word. Keanu Reeves exited the plane like he always did, quietly, politely, helping an elderly woman with her overhead bag before stepping into the terminal. No entourage. No outburst. No need to explain anything. But the story didn't end when his feet touched the ground. It was just beginning. Within an hour, Claire's video was online. The clip wasn't flashy, it was shaky, recorded from a phone, with snippets of the confrontation and passengers standing up for Keanu. But it had heart. And the internet noticed. The caption read, "Keanu Reeves gets humiliated over a necklace in first class. Watch what happens next." By the end of the day, the video had over 2 million views. By morning, it was trending on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, even mainstream news outlets started picking it up. #RespectKeanu became the #1 hashtag globally. People weren't just sharing the video, they were sharing why it mattered. Comments flooded in. "This man lost so much and still carries himself with peace. Shame on that flight crew. Keanu's necklace is a tribute to River Phoenix. If you know, you know." He didn't clap back. He didn't yell. He just stayed kind. That's a real role model. The story became more than a viral clip. It became a conversation. About kindness. About assumptions. About how we treat people based on what we think they should look like. And the airline? They responded too, but not before the public made them. A day later, they released an official statement. "We sincerely apologize to Mr. Reeves for the misunderstanding on board Flight 472. We are reviewing our crew training procedures and have reached out to him directly to make amends." The flight attendant was placed on temporary leave. But Keanu never made a statement. No tweet. No interview. No public comment. Instead, he posted a single black and white photo on his rarely used Instagram. A close-up of the necklace. The silver cross. The green stone shining softly under the light. The caption? "For River." It was short, but it said everything. Fans around the world responded with messages of love and support. Artists drew tributes. Musicians wrote songs. Even people who had never watched his films before felt something. Because in that moment, Keanu wasn't just a celebrity. He was us, quietly carrying pain, holding on to memory, and staying gentle in a world that often isn't. What started as a moment of humiliation had transformed into a global reminder of empathy. And the truth? That necklace wasn't a problem. It was a symbol. One the world would never forget. Weeks passed. The video had done its rounds. News outlets moved on. Social media found new things to trend about. But something about that moment, on that plane, in that quiet cabin, stuck with people. Because it wasn't just about Keanu Reeves. It was about how we see each other. How quickly we judge. How easily we forget that behind every quiet face, there's a story. For Keanu, the necklace was never meant to be seen. It was something sacred. Worn close to his heart, out of sight, not for show, but for healing. A symbol of someone he loved and lost far too soon. River Phoenix wasn't just another Hollywood tragedy to him. He was a part of Keanu's soul. And yet, a single misunderstanding almost turned that quiet symbol into a scandal. But it didn't. Because Keanu chose grace. The passengers chose courage. And the world chose to listen. That moment on the plane became a reflection of something much deeper, the power of stillness in the face of humiliation. The strength of not retaliating, not raising your voice, yet still standing your ground. Keanu never spoke out against the flight attendant. He never demanded an apology. Never weaponized his fame. Instead, he let the truth speak for itself. And in doing so, he reminded us all that being powerful doesn't mean being loud. It means being kind when you don't have to be. It means wearing your pain not as a weapon, but as a reminder of who you are. And who you've lost. For some, it was just a necklace. But for Keanu? It was memory. It was loss. It was love. And for everyone watching the story unfold, it became something else entirely. A lesson. That in a world obsessed with status and appearance, the most valuable things we carry can't be measured in dollars or judged by uniforms. They're the quiet pieces of our soul. The ones we keep close. The ones that tell the real story. So next time you see someone holding onto something you don't understand, stop and wonder. What if that's their river? Thanks for watching another story on Storix, where every tale leaves a mark. Like, comment, and subscribe for more true and powerful stories. Because here, it's never just a story, it's Storix.